going back to, this particular book, he was talking about design, and he wrote in the early 20th century, right after the Impressionists were just at the end of their, heyday. But he was talking about the Chinese, and he was very much influenced by the Japanese and Chinese,
Yes.
and their design elements. And he said that, and of course I mentioned to you that he said academically we were trained to start with drawing, and then you would learn design by some chance or something, whereas he believes you should begin with design. And I was thinking, and he said that the Japanese don't think about two-dimensional images the same way in the Chinese, in their tradition, as the Western world does. And I was talking to my husband about this abstraction class, because he's a musician. And I said, Tim, if you were to open up the window right now, we would hear birds, we would hear the lawnmower, we would hear, what else would we would hear somebody pounding on something, we'd hear a neighbor's dog barking, we might hear a car go by, a motorcycle go by. And that's a record of the sounds of there. Now, if we paid $50 and went to a concert, and the concert began, and that's what we heard for the next 45 minutes, we would be very unhappy. And he says, well, that's not music. And I said, but people think that if they paint exactly what's out there, that's art. But we would not think that of sound and music. And I realized that the Japanese don't either. They don't think that duplicating what you see is necessarily an expression of art. They will, and you see Japanese prints, they're very concerned with shape and space and all kinds of things like that, and the feeling that you might get from a place. And they have a certain spiritual aspect to their work. Yeah. You sense it in their work, and it's not about the physical thing, it's about the feeling, or and also I think it's very interesting that we as a culture are so tied to the physical image being representational of a physical thing, and yet in music we would never tolerate that same exact representational.
That's a great analogy, and I think that's a great way to explain it to students who are delving in and not having a lot of artistic background, school, a degree, they're just coming in. That's a great analogy. And